My own sister texted me, "Don't come to mom's retirement party. She doesn't want you there." No call, no explanation, just a sentence dropped into my night like I didn't exist. What hurt more? My dad liked the message, so I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I typed one word, "cool," and quietly stopped paying for the venue. 7 days later, the celebration they'd planned without me started to fall apart. My phone lit up for hours, names stacking on the screen. And trust me, that was only the first consequence. Before I tell you how this ended, hit like and comment where you're listening from. If you've ever been erased by your own family, I want to hear from you. I'm Olivia. I was 34 when I finally understood how replaceable I was to the people who raised me. On paper, my family looked fine. The kind neighbors waved at. The kind that posted smiling photos every holiday. If you walked into my parents' house, you'd see framed memories lining the hallway, birthdays, graduations, vacations that looked effortless in hindsight. What you wouldn't see was how those moments were built or who carried them. That was usually me. I worked a stable job that required organization, patience, and problem solving. Somewhere along the way, those skills quietly transferred from my career into my family. I became the one who booked things, paid things, smoothed things over. I didn't announce it. I didn't keep score. I just did it because someone had to. My mother liked things done properly. My father liked things peaceful. And my younger sister, well, she liked being celebrated. She was the loud one, the charming one, the one whose mistakes were always explained away as stress or passion or someone else's fault. Growing up, if something broke, I was asked why I wasn't more careful. If she broke it, we laughed and moved on. That dynamic never really changed. It just grew better dressed. When my mom announced she was retiring, everyone talked about how special it was. Decades of work, a milestone, a moment she deserved to enjoy. My sister talked about how big it should be. My dad talked about keeping things simple. And somehow, without a meeting or a plan, the responsibility landed in my lap. I didn't mind at first. I found a venue that felt warm, not flashy. I coordinated catering. My mom actually liked, not just what looked good in photos. I handled the payments quietly, the way I always did. Bills were just numbers to me, problems with solutions. I didn't expect a thank you. I never really had. What I did expect was to be there. There was a photo I kept thinking about while I planned everything. It was old, slightly faded. My mom and me in the kitchen when I was little. She was laughing mid-spin, apron crooked. I was holding on to her hands, off balance, smiling like nothing could go wrong. I held on to that image more than I realized. Maybe part of me thought this party was a way back to that version of us. The night my sister texted me all of that, cracked, not shattered, cracked. Because when someone tells you not to come to a celebration, you built it. Forces a question you've been avoiding your whole life. Was I family, or was I just useful? That question stayed with me long after I set my phone down, and it followed me straight into the days that came next. The message came late, the kind of hour where nothing good ever arrives. I was at home, shoes kicked off near the door, the room lit by a single lamp I'd forgotten to turn off. My phone buzzed once on the coffee table. I didn't rush to it. I never did anymore. Most nights it was just noise group chats. I muted reminders I already knew by heart. Then I saw my sister's name. The text was short. No greeting. No softening the blow. Don't come to mom's retirement party. She doesn't want you there. I stared at the screen longer than I want to admit. Long enough for my brain to search for context that wasn't there. A joke. A misunderstanding. Anything that made it make sense. My sister had always spoken bluntly, but this wasn't blunt. It was surgical. Before I could respond, another line appeared. Dad liked the message. That tiny detail hit harder than the words themselves. My father had always claimed neutrality. He believed staying quiet was the same as staying kind. Growing up, he'd sit at the end of the table while arguments unfolded, nodding occasionally, offering nothing that might disturb the balance. I used to think that meant he was fair. Now I understood it meant he was comfortable letting other people take the damage. I set the phone down. My chest felt tight. Not with panic, but with something colder. the kind of clarity that arrives when denial finally gives up. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I didn't draft a paragraph defending myself. I typed one word. Cool. That was it. Then I opened my laptop. The venue confirmation email was still open from earlier that day. I'd been checking details, making sure everything was set. Without hesitation, I started undoing what I'd built, one cancellation at a time. Each click was quiet, clean, the kind of efficiency I was known for. The payments didn't fight back. The bills didn't argue. They just disappeared one by one, like they'd never belonged there in the first place. What surprised me most was how calm I felt. The next morning, I waited for something, an apology, a call, even an awkward explanation. None came. The silence stretched through the day and into the next. It was the kind of silence that answers questions without saying a word. They weren't confused. They weren't conflicted. They were simply assuming I'd fall back into place. A few days later, messages started trickling in. My sister accusing me of being dramatic. My mom asking why things weren't moving forward. No one asked how I was. No one acknowledged what had been said to me. They spoke like the problem wasn't what they'd done, but that I'd stopped fixing it. That's when the shift happened. Not loud, not sudden, just a quiet realization settling in my chest. If I kept stepping back into the role they'd assigned me, this would never end. There would always be another event, another bill, another line crossed, explained away as family. And for the first time, I didn't rush to close the gap. I let it stay open because something told me this wasn't the worst thing they were going to do. And I was right. The day of the party arrived without ceremony. I woke up early out of habit, my body still wired to solve problems that were no longer mine. For a moment, I reached for my phone, then stopped. There was nothing I needed to check. No schedules to confirm, no last-minute fixes to make. Instead of driving toward my parents' house, I went in the opposite direction. I spent the morning in a quiet corner of the city, somewhere neutral where no one knew my family name. The air felt lighter there, like I was borrowing a life that didn't expect anything from me. My phone stayed face down on the table beside me. I didn't need to look to know what was happening. I could picture it clearly. People arriving confused. My sister scrambling. My mom smiling too hard, pretending this was exactly how she wanted it. The kind of chaos that only shows up when the person who holds everything together quietly steps away. Mid-afternoon, a message came through from a cousin. No commentary, just a photo. The celebration had been moved to the garage. Folding chairs lined up unevenly. A banner drooped against the wall, the letters curling at the edges like they'd given up halfway through. Half the guests I'd personally followed up with weren't there. Probably assumed the whole thing had been canceled. My sister stood near the center holding a store-bought cake, like proof she'd tried. Her expression wasn't proud. It was tight, calculating. I turned my phone off. That evening, the call started. My sister first, her voice sharp, accusing me of ruining everything. My mom after that, demanding an explanation as if confusion had suddenly become her language. Even my dad tried once, leaving a voicemail that said a lot without actually saying anything. No one asked why I'd been hurt. They only wanted to know why things weren't working. A few days later, my sister texted like nothing had happened. There was a family dinner planned. I should stop acting childish. Come back, fix it. I didn't reply. Not long after, I had a work trip scheduled, just a few days out of town. Against my better judgment, I reached out to my parents and asked if they could watch my dog while I was gone. He loved their yard. I told myself it was temporary, controlled, safe. When I returned, something felt wrong immediately. No barking, no nails clicking against the floor, no familiar weight leaning against my legs. My mom opened the door alone. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "He's gone," she said. For a second, I thought she meant he'd run off, that there had been an accident. My chest tightened. Then she added casually, "Your sister took care of it." The words didn't land right. Took care of it? How? She sighed, already irritated. She found him a new home, someone who needed him more. That was the moment everything shifted. This wasn't about a party anymore. This wasn't about hurt feelings or misunderstandings. They hadn't just erased me. They'd crossed a line they couldn't walk back. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about how to keep the peace. I was thinking about how to protect myself. I didn't raise my voice when my mom said it. She found him a new home. The sentence floated in the space between us like it was normal, like it didn't rearrange something fundamental inside my chest. I asked one question. My voice sounded unfamiliar to my own ears. Too steady. Did you give her permission? My mom crossed her arms, already defensive. You were away. She handled it. We didn't think you'd mind once you calmed down. Once I calmed down. That phrase had followed me my entire life. It was always used right after someone hurt me, as if my reaction was the real problem, not the act itself. I walked past her into the house slowly, deliberately. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to understand exactly how far they'd gone. My sister's things were still everywhere. Shoes by the door, a jacket tossed over a chair. Proof she moved through this house with complete ownership, like it belonged to her. I found my dad in the backyard. He was trimming hedges, headphones on, pretending the world couldn't reach him if he stayed busy enough. I took them off for him. Did you know? I asked. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the grass like the right response might grow out of it. She said it was temporary, he finally muttered, that it would be better for everyone except me. I left without another word. In my car, I sat there longer than necessary, hands on the steering wheel, breathing through something that felt like grief, mixed with rage. But underneath it all was clarity, sharp, unforgiving. They had taken something that was mine, not emotionally, legally. And they had done it because they were certain I wouldn't fight back. They were wrong. That night, I didn't call my sister. I didn't show up at her place. I didn't send messages demanding explanations. I gathered proof, adoption paperwork, vet records, registration information, payments I'd made over the years, everything with my name on it. Everything that showed I wasn't just emotionally attached. I was the owner. The next morning, I made one call, not to family, to someone whose job wasn't to keep the peace, but to uphold the rules everyone else assumed didn't apply inside a family. I explained the situation calmly. No dramatics, just facts. My dog was sold without my consent while I was out of town. There was a pause on the line, then a simple response. That's not a family issue. That's a legal one. Hearing that felt like oxygen. By the afternoon, things moved quickly. When officers arrived at my parents' house, my mom looked genuinely shocked, like she couldn't believe I'd involved outsiders. My dad hovered behind her, silent as ever. My sister wasn't there yet. They tried to explain before anyone asked them to. She's overreacting. It was a misunderstanding. We were just trying to help. The officers listened politely, then turned to me. I handed over the documents one by one. They read, nodded, asked clarifying questions. Professional, detached, exactly what I needed. Who sold the dog? One of them asked. My mom hesitated. That alone was enough. Your sister, she said finally. And where is she now? She's on her way. When my sister pulled into the driveway, she stepped out of her car smiling. That confident, charming smile she'd used her whole life to diffuse consequences. Then she saw the uniforms. Her smile faltered. What's going on? She asked, eyes flicking between us. One of the officers spoke calmly. Did you sell a dog that doesn't belong to you? She scoffed. I rehomed him. It was the right thing to do. Did you have permission from the owner? She opened her mouth, closed it, rolled her eyes. She was being dramatic. I knew she'd get over it. That was the moment. Not when the officer explained the situation, not when the paperwork came out, but when my sister realized her usual confidence wasn't working, they placed her in handcuffs. My mom screamed. My dad shouted that this was unnecessary, that we could talk about it, that this was family. The officer didn't even look at them. Family doesn't give you the right to sell someone else's property, he said. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel revenge. I felt still at the station. Everything became quieter, more procedural, less emotional. I sat in a plastic chair, hands folded, answering questions I'd already prepared myself for. They told me how much my sister had sold him for. A small amount, like he was nothing more than an object to be moved for convenience. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I asked for the night. That evening, my phone filled with messages I didn't read, voicemails I didn't open. I went home to an apartment that felt too quiet without the familiar sound of paws on the floor. I slept badly. The next morning, I got the call. They'd found him. When I walked into the station, he recognized me immediately. He ran toward me so hard his whole body shook. I dropped to my knees and wrapped my arms around him, breathing in that familiar scent, grounding myself in something real. I pressed charges. That part surprised my parents the most. They thought getting him back would be enough, that I'd take the win and smooth things over like I always had. But this wasn't about punishment. It was about a line. My sister paid restitution through legal channels. There were no apologies, just bitterness, just blame. That night, my mom left a voicemail. She started calm, then angry, then desperate. She said, if I didn't drop everything, I was choosing to walk away from the family. I deleted it. Because for the first time, that wasn't a threat. It was a confirmation. They had built a family that only worked if I stayed silent. And I was done being quiet. The house felt different after that. Quieter, but not empty. He slept pressed against my leg the first night back like he needed to make sure I was real. I didn't move until morning. I let the stillness settle into my bones, replacing the constant tension I'd carried for years. The legal part wrapped up without drama. Restitution went through the proper channels. No heartfelt conversations followed. No apologies showed up late and trembling. Just distance, clean and unmistakable. I changed the locks, updated my emergency contacts, removed names that had been there by default, not by trust. It felt strange how simple it was, how long I delayed something so necessary. My parents didn't come by. My sister didn't reach out. The silence this time felt different. It wasn't punishment. It was the natural consequence of boundaries finally holding. I kept working. I cooked dinners I actually enjoyed. I took longer walks. I stopped bracing myself for the next demand. Some nights I thought about the party, about the message, about how easily they'd erased me. And then I'd look down and feel the warm weight at my side and remember why I stopped letting them. Peace, I learned, isn't loud. It just stays. For a long time, I thought love meant enduring whatever your family handed you. Now I know better. If being hurt is the price of belonging, it isn't love, it's control. And choosing yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you honest. If this story sounds familiar, you're not alone. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me where you're listening from and hit subscribe for more real stories about boundaries, betrayal, and quiet justice.